Alright, we're going to be learning how to find percents. Right there, learn to find percents. Here's your first example of what I'm talking about. Finding the percent one number is of another. Finding what percent of one number is of the other. So there's two methods to doing this. I'm going to show you both. Depending on where you're at, if you have a good grasp of equations, then you can do the second method. If you still have a hard time with equations, meaning moving stuff from one side of the equal sign to the other, then you might want to do the first method. So, what percent of 92 is 66? You could also say, say you took a 7-question quiz and you got 4 right. You would decide what percent of 7 is 4. Those are the kind of things that you would use this for. So what percent of 92 is 66? Method 1 is to set up a proportion to find the percent. Think, what number is to 100 as 66 is to 92? Why would we want to put the number over 100? Because percents, when you write percents as fractions, you can just change them to where it's the number over 100. Because percents are always out of 100. 100% is totals. So, you can think what number is to 100 as 66 is to 92. That number will be our percent, since percents you write over 100. First, I'm going to set up the proportion. What number over 100 equals part out of whole? So, substitute. We don't know the number, that we're looking for it, because that's our percent out of 100. And part out of whole, 66 out of 92. This is how we know that, the percent of 92. Why would we want the percent of part of something? We want the percent of the total. And 66 is out of the 92, so that's how our substitution worked. Find the cross products. This is just like we have been doing to get equations. You multiply across. 92 times n is 92n. 100 times 66 is 6600. So once you have your equation, it's pretty easy. You just take your equation and solve for n by doing the inverse operations. I divide by 92 and it's about 72. So, plug that in. The proportion is reasonable. It wouldn't be reasonable if we had a number like higher than 100. So 66 is approximately 72% of 92. Additional example, finding the percent one number is of another. What percent of 220 is 88? This is the second method. It's just to jump right into the equation. So if you're comfortable with proportions, use method 1. If you're not, and you're more comfortable with just jumping into equations, use method 2. So you're going to set up your equation. Of means multiply. Is means equals. So you have what percent, that's what P is, what percent of, which means multiply, 220 is, which is equal sign, 88. So we just followed this question and plugged in everything. The what percent? Variable. Of means multiply. 220 we bring down. Is an equal sign. 88 we bring down. Divide both sides by 220 because that's our inverse operation to get P by itself. P equals 0.4. And move the decimal 2 places to the right, please, and it's 40%. 88 is 40% of 220. So you can use either method. You can jump straight into the equation with your keywords, or you can set up your proportion. Here's how you check to see if you're correct. Is 40%. Does 40% of 220 equal 88? Well, if you change the 40% to a decimal, and you multiply by that 220, would you get 88? Yes, you would. So you know you're right after that checking. So here's the check it out. This is your opportunity to try it. You can use either method. It does not matter. Just please use a method and write it down. What percent of 140 is 21? Press pause and I want you to try this problem. Alright, method 1. Set up a proportion to find the percent. This is for those of you who set up a proportion. If you didn't, go ahead and move the key over to method 2. Think, what number is to 100 as 21 is to 140? What number is to 100, so P over 100, is as 21 is to 240, so 21 out of 240 whenever we go to substitute. Cross multiply to get your equation. N times 140, 100 times 21 gives you 140. N equals 2100. In order to solve for n, you're going to have to do the inverse operation. So you get rid of the 140, which is occupying the n, by doing the inverse operation. N equals 15. So this is a reasonable proportion because, we're not over 100. We know 21 isn't half of 140, so it's less than. So it's less than 50%. Those are the kind of things you're looking for when you're deciding if it's reasonable. So 21. All right, the second method is to change just directly to an equation. So you have what percent of 140 is 21? The percent we do not know, so we're going to use a variable for that. P. Of means to multiply. You have 140. Is means equal 21. So here's your equation. P times 140 equals 21. In order to get the P by itself so we could solve for it, we need to do inverse operations. The inverse of multiplication is division. So we're going to divide by 140 to get rid of it. That crosses out the 140 on the left side, leaving us with just P by itself. And so we have P equals 21 over 140. First I'm going to simplify before I divide to get my decimal. And the reason why I do that is so I have smaller numbers to divide with. You don't have to simplify. You can just go ahead and do top in, bottom out if you'd like. I just like to simplify first so that way my division is with smaller numbers. I'd much rather divide 3 divided by 20. I do need a decimal because I need to change this to a percent, because the question is not what fraction of 140 is 21. The question is what percent of 140 is 21. So, to change to a decimal, you divide top in, bottom out. There's my division. I get 1500ths, but I need it as a percent. So I move the decimal 2 places to the right, 1, 2, and that gives me 15%. So now I want you to try this one. What percent of 110 is 11? You can choose method 1 or method 2, but go ahead and pause the video so that way you can try to find the percent of 110 that is 11. Okay, I'm going to start with method 2, where we set up an equation. What percent of 110 is 11? Remember, we don't know the percent, so we start off with P. Of means multiply. 110 is means equal 11. There's our equation. To solve for P, we need to be doing inverse operations, so divide by 110. When we divide, P equals 1/10, and when you move the decimal 2 places right, you get 10%. So 11 is 10% of 110.